The sexual revolution certainly did lead to an increased divorce rate. But for decades, the message has been that this really isn't a bad thing because women are better off and kids are resilient. Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse runs an organization called the Ruth Institute, which is dedicated to helping victims of the sexual revolution. According to her, divorce has actually been a disaster, and women and children have been particularly hard hit.
My husband and I experienced 4.5-year infertility crisis, and we resolved that crisis by adopting a little boy from a Romanian orphanage. He arrived in April, 2.5 years old, and then our daughter was born 6 months later. But those two kids showed us very clearly, children need their parents. And children are not potted plants that you can put on a shelf and water them once in a while and they'll be fine. That is just not true. So much goes on in the first 18 months of a child's life. And we saw that with our little boy by what he had missed and how difficult it was to make up all the things that he had missed. He's doing fine now, thanks be to God. But it was scary. It was a very scary time. But that's what convinced me that children need their parents. And you will never talk me out of that. I don't care what slick ad campaign anybody comes up with or what kind of propaganda comes down the pike saying that kids are resilient. Ugh. Kids are not that resilient. Kids need their own parents. And so that was the turning point for me.
Leila Miller started chronicling the effects of divorce almost by accident. She noticed some sadness in one of her friends that seemed to be related to her parents' divorce, and she was curious about it. So she put out a questionnaire on Facebook asking for feedback from now adult children of divorce.
I got, probably in the first 2 days, I got about 100 people. I got what I consider to be an avalanche of pain.
You can't even imagine what the children of divorce go through.
They all had so many of these issues, and they can point to, especially now as adults, because maybe at the time they didn't even understand, why am I full of such self-loathing? Why am I so insecure? Why am I looking for love in all the wrong places? Why am I acting out violently? And then they realize as they grow up, my whole identity, even who I am, everything I knew about my life was blown apart. I had no say in it whatsoever. And I was expected to go along with it and think it's good. And no one, not even counselors, no one asked me about how I felt about it or whether I had some thoughts that weren't so pleasant about what's just happened to my life.
Here's one I hear all the time. Your parents get divorced, then they get remarried. So you're going from one house to the other. But your remarried parent over there, they have a child together. And that child doesn't have to go anyplace. That child gets to be with their mom and dad all the time. But you are going back and forth from mom and dad. And when you go to your dad's house, there are pictures of dad and his wife and their children and their whole extended family on both sides. All of that's on the wall. But there are no pictures of you with you and your mom and dad or your mom's side of the family. None of that is over there. It's like half of your family doesn't exist half of the time. So having two half homes is not the same as having one home.
Themes of isolation, themes of abandonment. A lot of these people go on to their own marriages in stark terror of either being abandoned or abandoning and leaving their own marriage because they never had a model of how to stay. And so you get some of the participants who are explaining how they would plan, even though they had a wonderful spouse, but they would plan for that day that either they would have to leave or that the spouse would up and run, and yet there was nothing wrong with their marriage. It never, ever ends for the children of divorce.
It shows up at holidays, it shows up at weddings, it shows up at graduations. Who's supposed to have the seat of honor? Is the new wife really going to come? Do we have to put up with the stepdad? It goes on and on and on. The idea that kids get over it, it's just not true.
It wasn't until one of their parents actually physically died where they felt it's over. And this could be decades after the divorce. And others said, almost identically, some of them, when their one parent would die, and then they said, oh, I guess my parents aren't getting back together. The message that the kids get is that love can stop, that love, even though it was supposed to go on forever, ends when you're not happy anymore with the person. So that sets them up for a life of thinking, okay, I'm only lovable until I'm not, and then what happens?
Kids aren't the only ones adversely affected by divorce. Women suffer as well. Studies show that women who have been divorced have much higher financial, emotional, and psychological stress than their married counterparts. Part of this is simply the extra workload they take on.
A new report today confirmed what millions of us already know, that the powerhouse driving so many families are moms who work outside the home. They're the primary breadwinners in a whopping 40% of families, nearly 4 times the number in 1960.
And of those women, 63% are single mothers, with a median income of only $23,000. There are 10 million single mother-led families in the U.S., which is triple the number in 1960.
If it were not that divorce touched on sex, as Peter Kraft has said, it would not be allowed in this society, something that is that detrimental to the foundations of society. And yet because it's about sex, because marriage is about sex, divorce is about sex, we allow it. We allow it and we affirm it.